With that said, we can talk a little bit. Oh, I wanted to ask you a different question, just because for esports historian reasons, because I think it's a fun conversation to have, and I think a lot of people have heard this, but they don't really understand the implications of it, which is that Gumayusi is the younger brother of Innovation, who is one of the probably best StarCraft 2 players of all time. Came along a little bit later into StarCraft 2. But what's so funny when we talk about Gumayusi's style and his personality is that it is so different from Innovation. Innovation was the perfect, like, macro mechanic player, and he kind of was just like, he would just grind you down slowly over time, playing this really conservative style where it was just like constant pressure and just grind until he eventually won the game. As a person, he's extremely reserved, very quiet, shy. And then you have Gumayusi, who is this outlandish, like, aggressive player, loves to trash talk and everything like that. So it's very fun to see the really these polar opposite brothers in different games and how it's affected their play styles. But can you give some color on, like, Innovation's career and why he was such a big name?
Basically, Innovation was one of the sort of almost the vanguard of what were called the Kesper players at the time, where if people don't know, in StarCraft 2 ran simultaneously alongside Brood War for a couple of years, about 2.5 years or so. And what happened was, at the end of that period, during the whole time period, there was a whole back and forth, and in fact, a lawsuit in Korea between Blizzard and, like, Kesper and all this trash, basically over who decides which games run, and should they pay a license fee in Korea to run Brood War, etc. And basically, the way this got resolved at the end, as far as I know, is on some level, I believe, actually, like, Kesper was winning the case. It was in Korea, and it was sort of like one of those things of, like, it's like if China were copyright, it's like, well, fuck you, we're Chinese, so we'll do what we want. But Kesper obviously wants at some point to work with Blizzard, because he'd have to, otherwise he's just going to be hanging out with a dead game forever. So they came to a deal, basically, that they would have this 1 year in 2012. It's actually the year where Monte bizarrely had to do that, like OGN, for example, during WCS, where they'd have, like, a transition year, where in this transition year, teams would start playing StarCraft 2 as well as Brood War, by the way. That's not even a joke. They had a split Pro League at one point in time. And then eventually, after that year, everyone switched to StarCraft 2, which sadly did mean some of the legendary players like B2, etc., just didn't even play Stork. They just played briefly and just quit, basically. But one of the key players was Innovation was actually already, like, right on the cusp of becoming a really good 1v1 player at the end of Brood War. And so when he transitioned, if you remember, there was that famous article on Team Liquid, The Elephant in the Room, which was about this topic. It was about the idea that everyone was worshipping these StarCraft 2 Korean players, but it's like, bro, those are the fucking jobbers. Like, the real Koreans aren't even playing StarCraft 2 yet. And whoever wrote that article knew his shit, because he was right. And people like Innovation, well, as you can imagine, if you're right on the cusp of breaking through 1v1 in one of the hardest games ever, when it's been out for 12 years, when you come to a newer game that's wide open, you're just going to fucking tear ass. So Innovation, when he came to StarCraft 2, was just dominating for, like, I'd say, like, over the first year or so, year and a half. That's why he came to my team, Team Acer. We bought him from, like, I think it was on, like, maybe Samsung Seoul or some shit like that was whatever the Korean team he was on. I can't remember which team it was. It was like an ex-Kesper team at that point in time. And then basically he had a few years, though, where he was sort of like just an average player again. And then in the latter years, he actually then came on strong again and then started winning the championships again and going top. Now, here's the interesting thing, though. Even though I agree in terms of personality and, like, the flair that he plays with, he's very different. They actually have a shared weakness, though, in my opinion, which is in line with what I was saying earlier, which is this. One of the big upsides of Innovation's game was obviously also incredible mechanics. He had some really fucking sick, like, APM. Everything was smooth. It was all really high level. But I always thought, because I used to talk to a lot of people who were experts at StarCraft 2 at the time, obviously going to events, and they would always tell me the flaw with him as a player was he really did play like he was a robot. As in, he would just do what he thought the best build was. And he was one of those people who thought, essentially, I sort of low-key fuck with this, but he went too far with it. He thought if you execute perfectly, you can win even if they know what you're doing. Now, the problem with that flaw is StarCraft 2 especially is a way more gimmicky game than Brood War. And actually, if the opponent knows exactly what build you're doing and how you're doing it, he can counter you. He can get, like, edgy. He can do crazy things in the game. So the flaw was, during times where his builds worked and Terran Race was the best, he would dominate. He would destroy people. He would get, like, 75% win rate in, like, pro matches on, like, multiple race matchups. The problem was, though, essentially, I got the vibe he was way too stubborn in times where it wasn't working. He would just keep doing it again and again. He would think, Because this is the flaw, by the way. This is why, by the way, people don't get this. Having talent is a curse. The curse of talent now is you don't get to learn those things. You don't get to improve those things. You're just given them, but you don't know why and you don't know how, and you don't always know the best way to use it. And even worse, it can sort of prop you up so you don't have to learn certain lessons other people did or develop in certain ways. So I would say actually that's the area where I wonder if there's a shared connection though, because the vibe I also get of Gumayusi is a bit like that. It's like he thinks essentially I can sort of do whatever I want, and as long as I do my part right, it works. It's like that's not really the way team games work, especially though, mate. Like there's the other thing. If you lose the game and your innovation, I mean, go look in the mirror. Unless you're mad at yourself, it's okay. If you're in a team and you fuck up, you have to look down the line, and especially the faker there, like, come on, man, like that could get a bit dodgy. So I think they have. I would agree they're different people very much, but there might be a shared similarity in the style. Because I wonder if Gumayusi himself doesn't realize, like, mate, the best mechanics in the world aren't needed for this. Like, that's what you do as the cherry on top to level your game up. What you really need is the decision making, adaptability, like have versatility to your game.
Yeah, I think what's going on too is that a lot of the hype last year when Gumayusi came in, right, was around his mechanics, like watching him play champions like Samira so well, and he did get a lot of that hype. And if we look at Zeus, right, Zeus started some games at the beginning of last year and then was basically replaced by Kana, and they more or less developed him behind the scenes, T1, until he obviously Kana left. Zeus got the full-time starting spot at the beginning of 2022. And now, you guys heard Nelson say it on this show last week. Nelson thinks that Zeus is potentially the best player in the world.
Yeah.
And Zeus certainly is having an outstanding year. And you really see the results of that development behind the scenes. And you tend to wonder, like, is Gumayusi's attitude towards the game or towards his own playstyle holding him back in certain ways? Because it's not that he hasn't gotten better, but he hasn't gotten better as fast as a player like Zeus has. And he's, while Zeus is not only in the conversation for best top laners, he's in the conversation for literal best player. And you would not say that Gumayusi isn't even in the conversation for best AD carries.
No.
So,
I even think there's a problem, by the way, that he has, which is this. Dude, I actually think he might also have a hard time because A, he's in LCK, and B, most important, he's on T1. Remember, T1 historically, you'd have to go back to Piglet before they're properly playing hard through the fucking bot lane, for fuck's sake. That's in 2013 and 2014. Like, T1 historically plays with the sort of tertiary AD carry, and they play through the solos historically. So in a team where, again, you have great solos, as you say, this time it's Zeus that's the better one, the top laner. Faker's just good. Like, you're not Uzi I, bro. You can't play like you're Uzi I. They haven't set the team up for you to be Uzi I. I feel like in a fucked up way, he almost should be an LPL team, mate. On an LPL team, they'd know what to do with this guy. What they would do is this: they'd go, right, what you're good at is putting the fucking gas pedal down. So put that motherfucker to the floor, and we'll just do everything else around you, and we'll see if we can win some games. Like, I feel like to play on T1 especially, T1 is way. Just think of even the style they were using this last splitting at Worlds. T1's way about we have like a blueprint how we're going to play, and then everyone has to do their job. It's not about like, just go crazy, everyone, and we're just going to try free flow and stuff like that. So that's the problem. With his sort of style, sometimes you try basically like the way out is through. You just push out and you go, right, max it out and sort of limit test and see how good you can get. And then we'll figure out a style. In this case, it'd have to be hyper aggressive, obviously. I get the vibe, his issue there as well is he has to figure out how to fit with his teammates, not just develop. Like, because he clearly got like, he just has fucking a hair trigger, doesn't he? He just goes for everything.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the way that T1 wants to play the game right now, is that they want to play a counter-punching style that is reactive. Yep. Like they're the boxer who, when you throw the jab, they'll let it hit them in order to get the cross in, right? Like they will hit back harder than you hit them, but that requires playing reactively cross map a lot of the time, and it's not about engaging Gumayusi. The thing is like what you do is your players move to get a bigger win somewhere else on the map, and they can do that because they have very mechanically skilled players. It's like if something happens in the bot lane, well, Zeus is going to all in the top side, right? Or Owner's going to head up there, and they're going to get more gold, more objectives. But if you have a player who isn't capable of like pulling back at the times when you're making a play somewhere else, then it becomes an issue. And a lot of T1's problems come from, again, Gumayusi being too aggressive and getting picked off. And it's like the way their shot calling system works is not always conducive to his style. Again, it can be like if you're making the counterplay towards Gumayusi, it can work really well, but they don't want to play the game always the same way through one champion. And when you really see that Zayas is more or less the perfect kind of player for this style, and you see Korea and Owner and Faker are, so Gumayusi stands out because he is a bit of a mismatch. And this is, again, why, you really wonder if Teddy was still on this team, how good they could be. Because I think they would be better with Teddy.
Had him now. Yeah. I think they would just complete the team. They'd have no flaw.
Yeah. So,
because there's the other thing to say as well, as someone who's watched lots of styles in different games as well, Monty, the style you're describing, being a counterpuncher, is the hardest to pull off, because as you say, you will have to be able essentially to instantly react, but at the same time be very disciplined. Like, essentially, you can't go first. Like, if they feint you out and you go first, then you just get knocked out, don't you? So, like, it's why people don't know there's like a massive skill to doing that.
Yeah, and you have to be able to take, you have to be able to take the right punch on the chin, and knowing that you're going to hit them twice as hard back, right? And
I'll give you the example. You remember a few years back at the classic Season 9 Worlds of G2, where they played that series against T1, and they gave all those dragons up, but they kept like cross-map playing, and somehow they won the series. I even said at the time, like, fans will never appreciate how impossible this whole series was. Because it's not like they knew they were going to do that before the game began. They just were reacting instantly, but patiently making the right play and not fucking up and going for the wrong thing. Like, that's so hard to do. That's so hard to do, guys.
I also think that T1's drafts, and honestly, I wonder if basically not having a coach for this length of time is starting to really hurt this team, because they seem to not be able to activate their own strengths. Like, I get it, Kallista's strong, guys, when Deft plays it, but this ain't the champ for you, T1. Like, it's not. You don't do well with it. You don't play well with it as a team. You don't get the leads in the early game that you necessarily need. You don't control objectives with it properly, and then you always end up in a late game scenario where it's useless. So for me, bearing in mind that while T1 has coaches, they are not necessarily the same level of strategic. Polt is not the strategic mastermind that other teams' coaches are, period. That's not an expectation we have of Polt. Polt has many other redeeming qualities. But this team is effectively coached by Faker.
Which is wild when you think how many young players they still have, Monty, how inexperienced they are. Like, I could even argue, as fucked up as this sounds, doing so well in Spring might have hurt them in that regard. Like, they might have been better if they'd have sort of had taken a knockout punch in the final by Gen G and then hired a coach or something.
Yeah. So I do wonder, especially the longer the year goes on and the more metas shift, if teams that have more robust coaching staff when it comes to in-game knowledge are going to do better.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.